I have been trying to avoid it up to this point, but before I go any further with this guide, I need to explain the rules behind Dota's numbers. And unfortunately for you, understanding this stuff requires reading and math. Yuck. Don't worry, I'll keep it simple. I'm the Seer, and this is the Noob's Guide to Dota 2. Dota has 3 damage types: physical, magical, and pure. Every spell in Dota that deals damage has components of at least one type, and you can see what type of damage each spell does by hovering over it. Pure damage is the easiest to explain. If a pure damage spell says it will do 100 damage, the enemy's health will be reduced by 100 points. Physical damage is the damage you do when you right-click enemies, and by spells that deal that type of damage. It can be reduced by 2 secondary stats, armor and damage block. Damage block is a stat that gives a chance to reduce incoming right-click damage by a fixed amount. Every melee hero in Dota has some damage block as an innate skill, and you can build more damage block with items such as Vanguard. Armor governs your resistance to physical damage. That means resistance from both enemy right-clicks and spells that deal physical damage. The way this resistance is calculated is tricky, but as a rule of thumb, if 2 heroes are being hit with the same amount of physical damage, the hero with +1 armor will have about 5% higher effective health points. The idea is that more armor makes you more resistant, but you can't just stack armor to become invulnerable to right-clicks. Magic damage is the type most commonly done by spells. However, most heroes in Dota have an innate resistance to magic damage of 25%, meaning if a spell says it does 80 points of magic damage, the enemy's HP will only be reduced by 60. This will be a cause of frustration in your first few games, as you think you will have enough damage to kill someone, and then they get away with very little health. Resistance to magic damage can be raised or lowered with items, and also completely nullified by items that grant spell immunity. More on that later. Next, attributes, or stats. There are 3 attributes in Dota: strength, agility, and intelligence. Every hero has different points in each of these numbers when the game starts, and also gains different amounts per level. This is also another way to figure out if a hero is a support or a carry. Carries tend to start with very low stats, but have a very high stat growth as they gain experience. What's most important for the hero you're playing, however, is their primary attribute. Every point you have in your hero's primary attribute will also raise your attack damage by 1, which is a great reason to build items that give you more of that stat. Now, in order. Strength. Every point in strength raises your hero's max health pool by 20, and their health regeneration by 0.1 HP per second. Strength-based heroes rely on their large health pools to soak up all kinds of damage, and are generally frontliners in battle. However, they are slow to move and attack. Agility. Every point in agility raises armor and attack speed. You gain 1 attack speed point per point of agility, and 1 point of armor for every 6 points you put into the stat. Attack speed is a separate stat that governs, wait for it, the speed of your attack. The higher it is, the faster you hit. Every hero's right-click is subtly different in ways I will explain another time, but as a very basic idea, improving attack speed by 1 is like speeding it up by 1%. Anyway, heroes based on agility rely on dealing right-click damage very quickly to kill their enemies, but have very little health, so they are weak to magic damage early on. This is where you will find assassin-type heroes. Riki the Stealth Assassin, Nyx Assassin, Phantom Assassin, Templar Assassin, and Bounty Hunter. Intelligence. Every point in intelligence raises your hero's maximum mana by 12 and their mana regeneration by 0.05. Heroes who specialize in intelligence are your big spellcasters. Usually played mid or support, these guys have a ton of active abilities with low cooldowns, and the mana to spam these abilities to kill enemies before they have time to heal. However, they usually deal magical damage, which doesn't scale well into the late game, as enemies build more strength and have more health as a result. An exception to this rule is Zeus, and now you can see why. No matter how much strength you have, his lightning is still going to do about the same percentage of damage thanks to his passive Static Field. Now let's cover a few secondary stats that we didn't mention. Movement speed. One of the most important stats in the game, every character in Dota has a stat that governs how much distance they cover per second, measured in units. The most common upgrade to movement speed are the Boots of Speed, a 500 gold item that every hero has to buy. Raising movement speed allows you to be more active in the game and get in and out of fights, which is something that's often overlooked in favor of doing a big number of damage on enemies. Next, spell amplification. The damage of your spells can be raised by certain items and spells, and it shows up here as a percentage. Evasion. This is a percentage chance to completely dodge enemy right-clicks. Like armor, this stat stacks diminishingly. It is impossible to build items to give you a full passive 100% evasion. However, some active spells can do just that, but only for a limited amount of time. Finally, status resistance. This is a relatively new element that lowers the duration of enemy disable abilities such as stuns by a percentage, while still doing the same amount of damage. It is most commonly tied to the ultra late game items Satanic and Ursa's ultimate ability Enrage. In Dota, there are 3 ways to raise your hero's stats: naturally by leveling up, by buying items that raise them, or by selecting hero-specific talents. Talents are a secondary way to upgrade your hero. At levels 10, 15, 20, and 25, you gain the ability to select one of 2 options to improve a certain ability or buff certain hero stats. This talent tree unlocks fully at level 30, where you gain all talents permanently. Also, every hero has different base stats and not just strength, agility, and intelligence, but also secondary stats like movement speed, armor, attack speed, and even base health and mana regeneration. These stats are constantly tweaked in minor patches, which is why people who write guides like mine often give up and stop updating them. On that note, that's all for today. For more info on Dota stats, I highly recommend the Dota 2 wiki, link here and in the description down below. It will always be up to date, unlike this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.